Some movies are slow burns, and some movies are I am the pretty thing that lives in the house. There's only what I would call one real scare in this film, and it involves a woman turning her head slowly and seeing something that gives her a bit of a fright. Ostensibly, the movie is about a young woman who has to take care of an aging author in her home, but don't expect a labyrinthine plot with this one. No, the movie is far more about atmospheric tension than anything else, and it has that by the bucket load. I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is filled with these long, slow, excruciating pans around the titular house in near total darkness, the kind of creeping, uneasy journey around an all too familiar home that makes you want to just scream at the editor to cut to something else already. I admit this is definitely not the kind of scary that will work for everyone, but if it does hook you, you'll find it impossible to look away from. I typically try not to paint with such broad strokes, but in general, all horror films understand that fear is born from a lack of power, the inability to comprehend a malicious force or overpower a dominating presence. The Austrian film Goodnight Mommy understands this and takes it to a very disturbing extreme. The film follows two children whose mother comes back from extensive surgery with her face completely bandaged. Her strange behaviour and mood swings leave the two to question whether this person is in fact their mother at all. Our protagonist's powerlessness comes not only from the fact that children, the most vulnerable type of protagonist possible in a horror movie, but that they're butting heads with the primary authority figure in their life, their own mother. Goodnight Mommy is also one of the rare films that is able to pull off a complete switcheroo towards the end in terms of who you sympathise with. By the time the credits roll, you will have felt genuine terror and unease on behalf of every character involved, which I think is a pretty incredible feat. I'm cheating, okay? I'm cheating here. No End House is the second season of Sci-Fi's Channel Zero, a show that turns internet creepypastas into mini-series. Wait, where are you going? Yeah, I admit, it's a hard sell. Each season of the show is based on a different short online horror story, the most famous of which being Kendall Cove, and while there are things to like about all of them, No End House is, at this point, a real outlier. This short story is just so ambitious. What starts out as an incredibly mundane concept, some kids visit a mysterious travelling haunted house attraction, evolves and changes over the course of 6 episodes, building a truly fantastical world that ends up feeling more like a high-concept science fiction story than a straight-up horror. The show has no time to mess around. The characters are weirdly intelligent for this kind of story and figure out what's going on startlingly quick. It's amazing that a show that starts off with some typical horror movie protagonist teens walking into a cliché haunted mansion ends up being a genuinely moving, melancholy story about loss and how the things we're shaped by most can end up being fabrications. And if you want a movie about horror protagonists that are too smart for their own good, check out Oculus, a filmic retort to every single smartass who's ever watched a horror movie and said, well, here's what I would have done. Ghostwatch is a 1992 experimental horror film produced by the BBC with a very fun gimmick. The movie posits itself as a genuine piece of programming, a sort of soft Halloween piece that the news would air about a spooky haunted house in Britain. It features real TV presenters of the time playing themselves and is structured how you might expect it to be, with the show getting increasingly more out of control as it turns out the house really is haunted. It's harder to appreciate now. These days, it's entirely likely anything that goes viral as part of some marketing campaign for the next Assassin's Creed, but imagine yourself as an 8-year-old in 1992 when this kind of thing hadn't been done before. You're actually seeing the nice familiar faces of your Saturday morning comfort TV presenters screaming in horror for their lives. Yeah, it goes a long way to explaining why the British Medical Journal reported on several instances of Ghostwatch-induced PTSD in children who saw it. Here's hoping for a sequel. As a cautionary warning, White Dog is not a very fun movie. It's also one of my favourite little horror movies and an absolute forgotten gem. The film was deemed too controversial upon completion and received a very limited release, only becoming available on home media in 2008, 25 years after it was made. It centres around a woman who adopts a stray dog who, while loving and adorable with her, has an unpredictable, horrifying, violent streak. Unlike a lot of scary movies where elucidation lessens the horror, once it's revealed what's really going on with this dog, the film actually becomes much more stomach-churning and unpleasant. The film is excellently shot and features a brilliant, overpowering soundtrack set to some of the most fucking scary footage of an animal ever put to film. Highly recommend checking this one out. Those are my 5 horror films in 5 minutes. Happy Halloween! Do the like, share and subscribe thing, and watch Shakma, a film where some D&D nerds get eaten by a baboon.